skiing feels so much better when the timing, you have a good day of skiing. Yeah. It's usually your timing is on point.
And I think that's the issue of, when, people listening to this want to revisit and want to progress. There's going to be different coaches. Some coaches are going to work for you. Tom will work for you. I won't. From my side, to me, I always say to somebody who wants training, not just in skiing, but I just say, are you willing to go back to the beginning? Because if you're not, I'm not your coach. I'm not the right person for you. If you just want to go from where you are now and keep getting faster and faster and faster, I can't really help you, because to get you to where you want to be, I need to go right back and address some fundamental issues. And a lot of the time, it is things that need to be addressed off the hill more than on the hill at this age. And I know that, obviously every ski instructor just wants to get off and ski with their client. I understand that. But if you're not willing as a ski coach to invest time into your clientele's health and stability, mobility, flexibility, everything off the hill, I can guarantee you're not a good coach. And that's where big picture things come into it now, with the ability to add in these little things like, oh, come and join us. We're going to do a little bit of work off the hill. And people might look at that and go, I know a lot of my clients who, they're wealthy people. They don't need the money, but they also don't want to invest the time. They want to invest the time skiing, but they don't get how much better they'd get at skiing if they just even put 1/3 of their time back into the off-hill feelings, the off-hill movement.
Totally.
And
I think I've had you sorry, were you gonna finish?
No, go. Yeah, go.
I've had some of my best breakthroughs in the off season, like without a doubt. And that whole COVID period, I hardly got to ski at all, but I was thinking about skiing, looking at my skiing, looking at other people's skiing. What am I needing to do next to, get to the next level? And that's what big picture skiing, really the goal of it is maximize time off snow. Like if you know what you're going to do when you put the boots on and you go down the hill, you've got all that sorted, all the hours, like, oh no, that's not right. No. And then you just go and you do it. You're now like maximizing that $150 a day ski ticket, right? So there's so much time you can, really invest off snow with body stuff, theory, your eye looking at things and being able to like problem solve your own issues.
Yeah. And I think this is where
equipment. So
you differentiate between the sort of different students, if you like, because obviously you have people who I sometimes look at it and think, when just not meant for them. These are the guys who go 6 days a year, they potter around a bit, they enjoy, stop for a glass of wine, potter around and go off and a bit of après, and it's a holiday to them. What we're talking here is people who are really serious about skiing and talk the talk. And if you're the talk the talk guy, it's time to walk the walk. And, people ask me after training, I've been training at least 4 decades of hard, intense training. I don't take a day off, ever. I always train every single day. And people go, well, how do you have the motivation to do that? And I go, I don't. I have a discipline to do it. That's not a motivation. I have a discipline. And I'm constantly adapting and changing my routine. So I'm not hitting, I'm not doing squats every day, 6-7 days a week. But the point is it's a discipline. And if you want to be that better skier coming the season in summer, in the southern hemisphere, or in winter here in the northern hemisphere, then you've really got to invest. Even, if you just start doing a little bit extra, you'd be surprised at the difference it could make. Especially, getting into a routine.
And I think, I was just going to say too, like I get a real kick when people comment about, like there's a strength and mobility off-season section in the video library. And people write comments like, oh, I was playing with this also on my stand-up paddleboard. Oh, I was playing with this same concept on my bike.
Yeah.
In the gym. The stuff I talk about, I only really talk about, I'll be specific if it's very ski specific, but a lot of it is just universal fundamental principles that go across any sport.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so the cool thing is, and that's why I think also part of what you do is not just discipline, you're training across all sorts of things because it's interesting to you. You like movement. you don't see that big of a difference, like if you've got a good squat, that flexing and that folding up pattern, it's going to serve you well when you go to do all your things.
Yeah, I mean, I was saying to you when we were talking, I was saying how little I'd skied this season. I think about 10 times, because it was so busy with Ski Instructor Academy. Plus we had the acquisition of a second company as well, and operating in Austria, France, Canada, around the world. It really put me under stress in the office. But what was interesting to me was I didn't then say, I can't train. I mean, I was Langlauf, cross-country skiing a lot, for example. And you would think that would be, especially skating, because I'm not talking classic, I'm talking skating.
Yeah.
And obviously the doctor said, don't do cross-country skiing, skating, classic's fine, the sliding, but no. But no, I went off and did skating. And I was interested because when I did ski, and I popped up a video on the end of a podcast the other day because I'd made a mistake and not recorded the whole podcast. And I looked at the ski and thought, for a guy who's actually just skied, 8 to 10 times this year, it's not like I've completely slipped back over, because like you recognize, I still move. It's not like I'm just sitting round on my seat for eight months or whatever. I keep moving. And I think everybody who's got problems, restrictions, be aware if somebody's telling you to rest, make sure that you understand what that rest means, because, rest's important, but believe me, movement's more important. Look at the guy who invented RICE, rest, ice, compression, elevation, that thing. He's come out in the last 5 years and said, yeah, it was total BS. I've made a big mistake. You shouldn't do that. What you need to do is, as quickly as possible, start to move the injured part, like that guy with the shoulder. Same thing. The best way to deal with a shoulder injury is to reverse the injury out, getting back that external rotation in his case. And that comes with a few exercises, and you'd be surprised. A lot of people might get good results within a very short period of time, but it's an investment. There's no doubt about it. If you want to ski well, to me, and you want to progress your skiing, it's not just about on the piste, it's also what you're doing off the piste. And that's why this off-hill training becomes, to me, very important. And I think you've got that idea now as well.
Yeah. And knowing exactly what your like that was another thing from these academy students. What they said was just like many times the target they were given was just a bit different. Like what the target that they were trying to achieve, given what other people had said to them, they were trying to do that. They were going out, they were being good, they were doing exercises or trying to do a certain movement. But the target was like really not helping what they were doing. Shifted the target to something different, a different kind of outcome, a different movement pattern. Yeah. Bam, results start happening. Like that. Yeah, like that guy's shoulder, if he'd been given a different kind of movement pattern to try and practice, he could have continued just wearing away the shoulder, but changed it. No, it's not your shoulder, it's your scapula you need to move. Yeah. Suddenly, boom.
Which is what we had in years back when we saw the injuries with groins and hamstrings with footballers. And a lot of it was because the off-hill or the off-season training they were doing was based upon running, when actually what they should have done was acceleration, deacceleration, change of direction in the off-hill, because that is sport. Change it. And we think skiing, change of direction. Yeah,
change of direction.
And if you're not training change of direction, then why do you think you can put your skis on and go skiing and ski like you or even like me or whoever? You can't just suddenly go, oh yeah, I've seen it looks good, I know what to do, basically. And of course they look at position, they go, oh, this guy's just more crouched, or this guy's just more rounded, or this guy's more straight, this guy's guys, like that's to do with anatomy, that's to do with biomechanics. I've said before how my back position will probably be different to somebody else's back position, because, lengths of femurs and etc. is going to make things change. But if you work on things, sorry.
I was going to say, like Sam Robertson, the other guy, my co-coach, he used to race for Australia and like phenomenal skier. He used to play rugby and soccer, football back in school, and he wasn't that fast in straight line, but he was faster than everyone else in the team, zigzag sideways. And he was just telling me he went to a CrossFit like training session the other day, and they were doing some like side to side runs, and he wasn't, as soon as they had to go from left to right, he was faster than everyone else in the room. So it's just interesting, and that's skiing, right?
Yeah.
Boom, you're right, go left.
Absolutely.
Really fast and deal with that big
Force.
collision, deflection, boom, off you go, and your body can manage it. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's clearly used to developing torque as well, which is one of the things I keep going on about, how to develop torque in sport movement. It's so important. And as we get older as well, it's important we don't lose that. And, one thing's for certain, as people get older, what I see is they favor endurance training. They'll go towards biking, ultra marathons. It's surprising people in their 40s, 50s, 60s can be phenomenal at ultra marathons, but they are avoiding one of the most important things, which is strength. Keep your strength up as you get older. You'll not regret that. That is going to be the youth for you. And the muscles of youth being behind you mostly in the posterior chain, very important. But that said, I still think in skiing and in movement like this, tibialis exercises that nobody ever concentrates on. Everybody wants the big calves, but they don't quite get it, how important it is if your knees are going over your toes, etc., to do your tib work. And it'll make a massive difference to your knee pain. Definitely get the VML, get everything strengthened up around the knee. And, it's kept my knee together for 18 months, and I hope it keeps going until there's a magic injection. They just stick it in, everything's perfect again.
I have a bit of a theory about that with to blame on shoes too, because if you're, when you walk, you're going to heel strike.
Yeah.
And if you've got a big padded shoe, you can often just let your foot go heel and then slap the foot down. And as the heel hits, basically that tibialis anterior is eccentrically lowering the forefoot.
Yeah.
So if you're doing that in a controlled manner, walking with more minimal shoes or barefoot a lot of the time, tibialis gets a workout. Yeah. But you can do it that way, or you've been doing backwards. Really overload it, backwards, and do tibialis raises.
I mean,
they're really good.
I ran yesterday for the second time since this sort of springs kicked in here, and I'm not a great runner. I don't run distances, but I was still running about a 4:30 kilometer, even though it's only the second time I've ran since October last year. But what I did was I'm wearing still minimal shoes, but when I run, Tom, I wear the minimal shoe, but with a bit of padding. Because I can't get away with, when I walk walk completely minimal shoe. So it's got about 1 millimeter of rubber. But when I run, I wear my minimum shoe with padding, because otherwise it just would be too much with the hitting underneath the knee. So you adapt. But you adapt in clever ways. I mean, the problem with modern day shoes with toe spring and things is horrendous. With hiking boots, huge toe spring, completely switching off our toes.
Completely switching the toes off. Yeah,
and it's weird because
people
I was
that people's toes are stuffed. That's
I was taking the mick out of putting the plastic things between your toes.
Yeah.
People. Now, don't get me wrong. I actually do that, and I have a pair, and I wear them a lot. But I was taking the mick about it because people sometimes think, I'll just put these between my toes and that's the answer to me getting good toes.
Yeah.
It's not. Putting them between your toes is great, but you've got to move with, you don't just sit there with them on your, sticking out and like a woman doing her nails or something. You're meant to move with these. And a good thing is if I put those plastic things in between my toes and my shoe fits still, they're a good pair of shoes. If the shoe doesn't fit, they're clearly going in over and they've got toe spring and all sorts. And I throw the shoe away. I in the off season, as soon as it gets a bit warm, like now I'm in barefoot. I've got no socks on or no shoes. Walk around as much as you can. You'd be surprised the difference it makes. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It's just Archie now 4.5. I spend as much time as I can letting him be barefoot early on in his life, was always just putting him barefoot everywhere. And his feet, he's got a really good pair of feet on him.
Yeah.
And
so I'm just sort of a little,
exactly. Yeah, Archie
with 3 arches.
So I'm interested to see where that, what happens, because he's already a pretty good little athlete. Playing soccer now and skiing, so it seems to be helping.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tom, no one cares really. We're just talking about old people in the 50s and 60s. Tom talking about his young kid and how wonderful life he's got. He's going to be the best athlete ever.
Well,
You
maybe
know,
they can
come on.
pass that on to their grandchildren or their children to make sure,
Yes, that's right.
their
Well, actually, in
grandchildren.
fairness, when we were young in the 70s, you had to wear these plimsoll shoes. They didn't have anything else because obviously Nike hadn't been come around then, and everything was just flat. And obviously Nike destroyed the feet when they developed the pumps and all this sort of stuff. And instantly anatomy changed. People didn't even realize, but they're sort of leaning forward and they don't even know they're leaning forward at the minute. And that's just because, like you say, the shoe people are wearing is completely changed the mechanics of the body. And to now unwind that, though, it's not something you're going to do overnight. And that's, I think, what I want to preach today is if you want your knees or your back or whatever it is that's got a problem to it, you're going to have to invest. You cannot get an answer. You can't just go to a physio and expect one session to change things, or, do 1 or 2 training sessions and expect that shoulder pain to disappear. There has to be a small investment of time. And if you're willing to put that in, I think it, can make huge differences.
Yeah, and constantly gain, that physio session, you should be extracting information about what you can, what is the 10% out of that you can learn and do and not need the physio for until next time you come back, and then get the next bit of information to add. So by the end, you're halfway to being an actual physiotherapist, if you go and use someone, because you want to use them not for, them to just try and do all the work, but to gain that knowledge.
Yeah.
That's powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. And at the end of the day as well, no matter how good we might think we are as coaches, we will have failures, and we will learn from, doing something with somebody and think, oh, that didn't work for this guy. But of course, as a good coach, you quickly identify that, and you don't just keep hammering. Just keep pushing on those shins. You'll be fine. The boots will work eventually. You think, hang on a second, maybe I need to think of another way that this could work. And that's what a good coach does. Don't expect instantly to get results from the coach. He like anything's learning.
I got a good story. Remember I was telling you about that guy who over the season, he'd send in videos to the academy and, doing a drill. And I'd be like, yeah, that's pretty good. But you're still not getting edge at the end of the turn. Do you feel like I can see the ski sliding and leaving the skidding track? Does nothing. And then finally I went, hang on, I've been telling him 5-6 different ways to try and do this. I don't think he's, thick. Checked his boots.
See, I would have said he's thick, Tom.
Yeah, well, I was definitely crossed my mind because, he's in this, what seems to be a good pair of boots. Checked his boots. Boots were set up completely to basically take him off the edge.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, most people, and I spoke to Brent Armsbury, who's a really good boot fitter in Park City. He put him in a new pair of boots finally and skied way better. But we looked at it and it's set up and you'd think it would make you over edge the ski, but it made this guy under edge the ski. And, there's all sorts of canting stuff had been put in there. And this guy, the trickiest thing about him was he had bigger calves. He just needed more space there, so he wasn't pushed out of alignment. Anyway, new boots. He was actually doing what I was asking. Yeah, he could do all the things I said, let's work on. So, that was a good message for me.
It's weird because
it took several months.
I've never been involved in many sports where the equipment at the ground level makes such a difference. Don't get me wrong, it winds me up when I see somebody doing squats and they're wearing a pair of Nike pumps or something. It's like doing squats on a mattress. It's like, come on, either do it in bare feet or put a hard pair of shoe on. But in skiing, it really is the thing that can affect everything, no matter how good a skier you are. Oh, absolutely. I mean, I had, Jamie there all season, all he's done is whinge about his boots. Now, he's a fantastic skier. And because the brand new boot he's had and they've been messing around with it, still not right. He's whinged all year, whinge. It's like, well, do something about it, But it is the issue of that boot. It's ridiculous. And no other sport really, has such a bearing than skiing.
No, not that I've been involved in anyway.
And you could still run on a pair of shoes. Yeah, I could still run in my high heels. But
it's because you've got that hard plastic, and like that interface between your soft skin and bones inside that, and they press on plastic. Like your body just does not like that, so it'll shift away. It'll avoid pain.
Oh.
It's just all about pain. So you've got to customize your boots, and Jamie's just got to get in that boot shop or change the brand or.
Go back to neutral first, go back to complete neutral. Find out what is neutral for you. Start there and then slowly add on. I think nowadays everybody goes in and wants the boot fit that instantly can shift, move that, build this up, heel lift that, shift that across. And it's like, fine. If like me and you've done it for years and you know where the different bones are and where the navicular is and how you want it blown out. If you don't, just go to something that gives you some room, which is weird because, people are always saying, no, go for it tight. You're not that type of skier. You're not Marcel Hirscher or something, and then again, even him, he would have had fantastically snug fitting boots, but I bet you they weren't giving him pain. I can guarantee that. But we want something with a little bit, you'd be surprised how much movement. Like you said, and I say constantly, I skied all season, only 10 times. I never did my boots up on any of the skiing runs I did.
Yeah.
Never.
Yep. And that's a really good acid test. If you ski a little bit better and easier with your boots looser, stomach's up with your alignment. Yeah, that's really not good. One more little story. So Sam Robertson did some training again with some World Cup guys. So he joined them in spring and was racing Super G. And he's got the old Dalbello DRS, which are very cuff strong. So what that means is they're kind of tilted out like bow-legged. So it means when you tip your shin in, a lot of the edging comes from your shin, not your foot. Anyway, so he's skiing these boots and he's sending me some video and we're looking at it and he's like, yeah, it's funny, like when the pressure really comes on, I can see my knee kind of getting pushed out. And so we did some boot shell checks and he eventually went and got like the navicular bone. If you don't know what it is, look it up. And the ankle bone punched, and he had to go to this shop 3 times because they punched it like basically, with a hard-boiled egg, and they didn't want to push it. So he finally got it pushed. His skiing, he was like, man, so different, instant. So, even at his level, it was just, and that's the thing. You watch him, he was still skiing Super G, turns that I would be loving to make, but it's like he could make it easier.
Yeah.
And like Jamie, Jamie's all season probably still, you watch him go far out. I wish I could make turns like him, but it was inside. He probably couldn't ski 100%. He's like, these boots are painful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't, sometimes it's not totally messing it up like that other guy skidding. Just, make it easier. There's nothing wrong with just aiming for that.
I think as we get better as well, we feel we're more fine-tuned. Like that Formula One racing driver, you feel everything, whereas a beginner doesn't really have much idea what they should feel or how they should be. So
these feelings, good feelings, these feelings, what I'm supposed to feel. Yeah,
they're not really that bothered. But the better you get, the more fussy you get, and that's in anything. Whether even my training shoes, when I'm crossfitting or whatever, it makes a difference now, or I'm rowing or whatever. You're aware of it. You're switched onto it. And it's the smallest of things can spoil your ski day when you're that finely tuned, And as a result, sometimes, and that's what I did this year, I just went up and just didn't even buckle the boots up. It's just, and especially the problem I have is the sports shop gives me skis, boots all the time, different ones. And I'm putting something on, it's completely different. Yesterday, and when I skied these sort of 10 times, every time there was a different ski on my foot. There was 3 different boots on my foot. So to me, it was like, well, it's probably best I don't do these up, really. And actually, half the time you feel much more comfortable. And I would say to anybody, the first 10 days of skiing, I would not be doing this. In fact, I don't.
Yeah, and that's interesting there too, because like thinking about a client recently, his boots were kind of buckety, but the whole entire shape of them was just not even close to the shape of his foot, right? Like it just wasn't. And so he was cranking up his buckles and he was saying there's too much movement. But the problem with it just started, the movement was in because of spaces being in the wrong place, shapes just not matching shapes.
Yeah.
So like it's relative like looseness, I guess we're talking about. You know, your boots are not gum boots, Wellingtons. That
No, but if you wear like the Fisher, for example, you don't have to do it up. It just fits your foot.
Yep.
You don't need to do it up. And the issue is that until boot manufacturers sort of could somehow develop boots that could fit people, you are going to have to rely on the fact of buying a boot and having a shop who's genuine enough to spend then hours with you afterwards. In shops do not want to sell a €500 boot and then have to spend the next 10 hours getting that boot to fit. Where possible, they want to push people out the door and then not see them again. So that means creating maybe space where there shouldn't be space often, because the most obvious reason for people coming back is discomfort or pain. And I think that's the problem with boot fitting.
Yeah, and I've been thinking about this, because I don't think it's the, if I was the boot shop, I'd be like, yeah, stuff that. I'm not, then, my staff spending hours and hours. And I think really the solution would be boot shops should be very proud of like offering that as an extra thing. There's an extra cost. And I think the consumer, like, you should be saying, right, I've paid my 500. I'm also going to leave another 500 in the bank for maybe 2 seasons worth, maybe because you're not going that often, but I'm going to invest that in adjustment because I know it'll be worth it. And if I do that, the shop will respect me more. There'll be a mutual, trade. I really think there should be that paid, because it's, they can do a great job if they want to do it. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because one of my trainers said to me when I was doing discussion on anatomy of the feet and boot fitting when we had the coordination at the start of the season, and I said, finding a boot fitter is really difficult. And he said, well, there aren't any boot fitters, really. He says, all they are is people that, how did he put it? I can't remember his words, but it was something to do with the fact that you need to be to tell them what to do, and then they do the blowing out, that part. But they don't really, and in fairness, even if they were relatively good with anatomy and things, they still need your feedback. They still need you to say, I feel like I can't pronate or supinate. I can't, feel my big toe down here. I can't, feel this, so that they can work with that. But I think most of the time you have people like ourselves. I mean, myself, I can go into the shop and they're obviously going to be very cautious. They're going to look after me phenomenally well. But then I feel sorry for somebody else who goes in the shop who's a nobody, and they're not going to get the same treatment as I would. And that's maybe the way around it, where, okay, your first treatment's free if you need some adjustments from your new boot. But if you want more treatments, you pay €30 an hour or €30 a half hour. And like you say, it's money well invested, and the shop then doesn't feel cheated.
Yeah, exactly. Because I know I've sort of spoken out about footbeds, and I don't ski with them, and I have reasons why I think people shouldn't. But if you go down the road of sort of a more minimal footbed or whatever, what you're going to need to expect as a customer is, because your foot can move differently, it can sit in a different place, you're going to probably have to move that shell, punch that shell, do some work. And so that's where I think, instead of, solving it with a supportive footbed that stops all motion and pushes you away from the edge of the shell so no pain is there, but reduces your performance and ability to ski well, allow that to happen, but just inform. And I guess I'm saying to customers, be ready to then offer up more money or whatever it is and say, I want to go down this road and I'm happy to pay for it, and then can you please do the customization work? Because I think shops would probably make more money then. People would be happier and more comfortable. Anyway, that's the thought, because I know some shops are like, boot fitters are like, this Tom Gellie idiot, he just doesn't know what he's talking about, and I can see where they're coming from, but I think there's a way around it.
There's an answer to it. There's a market there for it, because as you rightly point out, it's all right saying, Tom or Paul, whatever, are idiots, but we're not. I'm sorry, guys, we're not. We know this for a fact, and there's a reason we know this. But on top of that, instead of saying that, like you said, just go out and see, well, okay, this is a way we can market this industry and earn some more money, then fine, do it that way. But just recognize that plastic boots, I mean, come on, it tells you it's a plastic boot. It's clearly, it doesn't fit everybody. It's impossible, so it does need something. And obviously, we could do a whole subject on footbeds and things. As you know, I'm dead against them. But just as a finishing thing as well.